Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor. Our topic today would be of especially interest to anybody who's starting a new job today or in the future. My guest is Dr. Thomas Denham from Careers in Transition. The show is basically what to do in the first month or two of your new job.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me again.
Well, thank you.
I think this is going to be a great topic, and I hope our viewers learn a lot.
Me too. It's always good to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
We've all been on a new job, just about everybody. Pretty stressful, I think, especially the first time. Some people change jobs these days a lot more. But I think it's kind of fun to start with what kind of mistakes have you seen people make in the beginning?
Well, this is your honeymoon period. Okay, so the bottom line is you want to be on your best behavior, at least for the first 30 days, first year, and then you can misbehave all you want, I guess. Some of the things that come to mind are misunderstanding the corporate culture. So oftentimes what you want to do is a lot of listening, a lot of observing, to get to know what that culture is like. You may be coming from a completely different culture. You may be coming from a very laid-back institution or office environment, and now this environment is going to be much more fast-paced. So that's one of the top mistakes.
I could see the opposite happening also. You've just come from the armed forces, and you go to a company like Google. I mean, this would be quite a shock.
Yeah, that might not be a good fit.
Might not.
Right, we'd have to understand the culture first. Not asking enough questions, just making assumptions. And when you are on your first days of the job, that first month, there are no stupid questions. So you can play dumb. So I just didn't, but a year from now, you can't ask those important questions. Lacking integrity, not following the rules, lack of attention to detail, making job-related errors, communicating poorly. I would suggest people over-communicate. Communicate some more. Misinterpreting the job description, poor interaction with coworkers, and finally, trying to change things too much. You may want to go in there and observe and see so many ways it could be done more effectively, more efficiently. You have to resist that impulse and wait patiently until the appropriate time.
Yeah, you think there's always exceptions to every piece of advice, and certainly if somebody's hired because the ship is sinking, their board's going to be looking to see something happen. But for most of us in most jobs, it's not that way, right? You come in and you don't know who you're working with and how they're going to react.
Right. Interesting story. In 1997, I'll never forget my first day at Siena College in the Career Center. Very first thing I did was have a staff meeting. Actually, before that, the very first thing I did was bring bagels from Brugger's. So that made the staff very happy. It was a great way to break the ice. But the very first thing I did was have a staff meeting, and we dealt with the mission statement, which they didn't have a mission statement. So if you don't have a mission statement, it's hard to fix all the other problems when you don't know.
Now, did you come in as a supervisor?
I came in as the director, the new director. So the ship was leaking, or some people would argue hemorrhaging. So it was very important for me to get the mission statement written with coworker support and input, and make sure everyone was on board. Then you can design all your products and services afterwards.
So we've really defined two totally separate situations. You come in as the supervisor, the boss, and you're expected to know something, I would assume, in that situation. Right. So you probably weren't just out of college at that point, or you?
No, I was 29 years old, which is very young to be a Career Center director. And there were some things that needed to get done absolutely immediately. I also started on September 1st, which is the start of our busy season, yes, with seniors. So there were some things that we needed to address immediately, and then some things that could be addressed in the first year, and then some things that could be addressed in year 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was a specific situation where there had to be a lot of changes very quickly.
So you bought them bagels, but give a few other examples. How do you get them to create a group? How do they have an image of themselves as a team?
I think they did, but there was a dichotomy between the support staff and the administrators. So I tried to bring them together. And
that was the previous administrator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We did try to create some team cohesiveness. It was also very important for me to get them to know them as people before you start directing and leading. So and get to know their style. And that's one of the things is you have to be very respectful of your coworkers. I work part-time at Skidmore College now, 10 hours a week, and I would not go in there and say, well, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. It's simply not appropriate, and quite frankly, the office is running very well. And so I've taken the approach of stepping back, observing, asking a lot of questions, and not trying to make many changes.
So everything we've said so far really kind of assumes that you need to know something about your environment.
Right.
And even though you came in probably to an organization that wasn't functioning well, so you were good by contrast right away.
Right. You have to read the situation. And during the interview process, they will tell you either verbally or non-verbally the type of person that they're looking for. So they may want a long-range plan. They may say, this department is working just fine, but these are the things where we want to go in the future, or they may say, we need to make some rapid changes immediately.
So in this show, I don't know, we haven't assumed that they necessarily have gotten a job. It's possible they're still interviewing. And so the interview, you're saying, is a chance for them to learn some of the things that they don't want to wait to learn.
Right. So during the interview, you're going to want to balance between talking and listening. And you need to pick up on some of the things that they're saying. So you could even say, what are the top 5 needs of this office or department or organization? Or where do you see this organization going in the next 5 years? And they may turn it on you and say, well, we were hoping you to answer that question. And you can say, well, you probably know this organization a lot better than I do. I certainly have some suggestions, but it would be inappropriate for me to offer those suggestions until I get to know this corporate culture. Where do you see the areas of improvement? That's what I would say.
Right, and some of this
then I would address what they're saying.
And if you didn't do it on the interview, somehow you have to achieve the same thing when you're new on the job.
Right, and you could even ask the staff. You could do either formal or informal surveys. But people generally do not like change. So if you go in and you're going to try to change things too much too quickly, that's going to cause some bad feelings.
I just had a discussion about change and our reticence to change in the last week, and I had to change a little bit my attitude. I went in thinking, what's the problem? I mean, change is not any issue at all. We see a problem, we fix it, and we do whatever it takes to fix it. So we're not thinking at the time, I'm changing. We're just saying, this is what needs to be done. Let's apply whatever forces we need to get it done. But you bring up the psychological aspect, and everybody has their expectations, their beliefs, and when you bring something that doesn't fit with all those, we all go, ooh. Right,
so you're right. I mean, change is like on a continuum. I mean, there's certainly people who are early adopters of change, want to be change agents, and then there are other people at the other end of the spectrum who dislike change and want the status quo or want to stay inside that comfort zone. When we get outside that comfort zone, that's where we grow the most.
Now, we started with, you're the boss, you're coming in, how am I going to get this group of people working together if they're not, those kind of questions. But there could be also, and probably most people, because most people aren't supervisors,
that's right.
They're coming in either as the junior achiever,
right,
or they're coming in middle.
Right.
Now, how would they approach their first day?
Sure. The first day, the first week, the first month is very critical. It's almost like you are stepping into this family, because at work we spend more time with our coworkers than we do our family. That's just the way the world is set up. And they know each other, and you're the adopted child. So you're going to want to fit in this group.
Hopefully not the father or mother in-law.
No, that is if you're the supervisor, you're now the adopted father or mother.
That's right, thank you.
So you're going to want to bond with these people, and you're going to want to have a very positive attitude. And really, this is like a dance. So you're following people's leads. In the interview is decided in the first 2 minutes. So that's how a person makes an impression of you. If you do something like bring in donuts, bring in bagels, decide to take everyone out to lunch, buy a pizza for lunch on that first day, first week, people are already going to warm up to you. They're also thinking like, who is this person and what is their style?
Yeah, when you mentioned family, I thought of something that probably I wouldn't have thought of if you didn't use that analogy, and that is jealousy. Can that be a problem?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime you have 2 or 3 people in an office, you have office politics.
And that could be translated into either, I guess, equity issues, fairness issues, or it could just be plain jealousy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are human beings. So if the new kid on the block comes in here and has worked in a similar department or office, that person, one of the reasons why they get hired is because they're bringing in fresh ideas and energy and enthusiasm. But the people that have been there for 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years may say, well, this is the way we've done it, and this is the way we've always done it, even though there may be a different way of looking at it, and they might be resistant to that. So you have to be very careful in how you approach this.
Right, because let's say you, and I know you're really an exponent of this, go out to lunch with people, get to know them, find out something about the company, but there may be all these relationships in groups. Okay, so you pick the wrong group. Maybe it's a minority group that's not well liked by most of the people,
right.
And you go out to lunch with one of those guys.
Right.
Might be a bad idea.
There's always politics involved. So yes, you do want to get to know people. You want to figure out who your allies are and who the people that are going to be a real challenge to you early on. And one of the things that I've learned is I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's the way God created me. So we could hear twice as much and talk half as much. So you can pick up on these things as long as you're willing to listen. People will actually reveal quite a bit about themselves and the institution or the office if you just listen and probe and ask the right questions.
And I guess if you treat everybody more or less the same, then that either it's going to keep you from making the kind of mistake where you hurt somebody's feelings or go into the wrong group or whatever other thing you can step into with office politics. At least it keeps you, your integrity intact. Right. So maybe the company is a horrible place to work. I mean, is that a possibility also?
Absolutely.
And you shouldn't stay there.
Right.
Or don't be so afraid.
It's like if you get into this family that we're talking about, every family is dysfunctional in some form, but there's dysfunction and then there's dysfunction. Right. So if you get into it and there are a lot of surprises that you weren't aware of that are intolerable, yes, probably after a year or 2, this is the time to exit.
Okay, now you said week. You mentioned a day, mentioned a week, mentioned the first month as being critical. Should you have some kind of goals when you're going in?
Right. Okay.
I mean, like formal.
First day on the job, arrive 10 minutes early. Not a half an hour, not an hour, and not 1 minute late. Okay. 10 minutes. You walk in the door with the bagels and coffee. Everyone's glad to see you. This is your first day. You're coming over for Thanksgiving. That's what it is. So they're happy to see you. The other thing is there is so much to know and learn. You've got to get a parking permit. You got to get an ID card. You've got to fill out paperwork from Human Resources. You got to get an email account. You have to have access to this. Oh, and by the way, your computer doesn't work.
And you should already know what you're wearing. Don't come in with a tie and everybody else is wearing a uniform.
Right. Well, you should know that from the interview process. Obviously, you're going to dress more conservatively during the interview, but then take a look at what people are wearing. I always dress as professional as I can without sticking out. Again, I'm the new kid on the block. 5 years from now, you can go in and certainly, once you've established your reputation, dress more casually. So what I would do, they're going to show you around the office, they're going to show you this, that, and the other thing, and your mind is going to be completely saturated.
So one goal is just getting oriented
getting
with basic things.
Getting settled in, right. Sometimes you're hitting the ground running. My position at Skidmore, I had one day to settle in, and then the next day I took student.
Well, they needed you.
Yes,
you know.
they did, for sure. And with 20 years of experience, I could hit the ground running. If they said, you know, here's day one, you get settled in, and the next day you're going to do financial aid paperwork, I think I would.
In a way, that's ideal. You come
failed.
in with a skill that other people don't have, and they're really happy to have you there.
Right.
So
I'm
you
like
perform well, and everybody's going to love you.
Right. I'm like a doctor without borders. I have the skill set that's transferable to all these other career
But
centers.
if you're a junior architect or you're a junior salesperson, you don't know all the customers, you don't know all the places.
If you're in sales, you have that transferable sales experience, but you don't know the product. You don't know the service. You don't know the customers. You don't know how things are done. So that there might be a longer.
So now we need to
curve
not
for that.
only know where the restroom is and how you do your time card and all the other things like that, but we need to know really how this company wants you to perform.
Right. So having a meeting with your supervisor either that day or within the first couple days will be very important. Then what you want to do is have frequent meetings with your supervisor so you're keeping those lines of communication open and you're meeting or exceeding the expectations. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to set some goals on Monday of what you want to accomplish for the week, and then on Friday have that supervision meeting so that you make sure you're on track. What you don't want to do is you're going down this road and you think these are the responsibilities you should be doing and this is the way you think that you should be doing it, and then at the end of the month your boss is like, I need to see you in my office, I need to talk to you about your performance, and you're thinking like, well, I'm doing what I was supposed to be doing, and your boss says, well, one, you're not doing it right, and two, you're not doing what we really need you to do. And so there was a communication.
Now in sales, a lot of times, don't they put the new person with an experienced person, you both go out, let's say you're selling copiers, you probably don't want to be the one talking too much, you know, with the person you're with, but
right. You're a junior. That's right.
Right, and so to what extent do you want to please the other salesperson? To what extent do you want to learn? How do you balance this relationship?
Well, again, it's like a dance. Yeah, and
read.
Yeah,
watch.
you have to read between the lines. 93% of communication is nonverbal, so
okay.
you can tell. You have to be conscious and deliberate and pick up on these nonverbal cues.
So would you say in the first week, what should you feel like you've accomplished?
That's a good question, because if I were to walk into a career center, I would want to know the services, the resources, the players, the type of students, the technology, getting my office set up, and those kind of things. Somebody else, it might take even longer to do that. For another person, another job, you may not have half that time to do that. But let's say you start on Monday and then you're going to work 5 days this week. Again, you're going to walk in with the Bruegger's bagels and the coffee, and then maybe they show you around the office a little bit, and then by 10 or 11 you're going to have that meeting with your supervisor. So that should be probably an hour, I would hope. Setting goals, setting expectations. What you don't want to do is make any mistakes or break any kind of etiquette in the office. So for example, if you just leave at noon for lunch and you don't tell anyone, maybe that's breaking an office etiquette that you're supposed to tell your supervisor. Just let them know that you're leaving the office.
So everything, you ought to know, you ought to feel comfortable that you're going along with what you should be doing for everything you do.
Right, there are written rules and then there are unwritten rules. Right. So at the end of the day, if you just leave without saying goodbye to anyone, is that the way things have been done? Or, saying goodbye at the end of the day is just kind of letting the person know, I've completed my day. Is there anything else you need? I'm leaving. You're the last person in the office. It's just courtesy.
I would think so. And maybe somebody feels a little bit insecure, doesn't know if they should be going up to a supervisor. Maybe they feel like they're brown-nosing their, I don't know, I can't think of a good word for it, but sometimes people have this idea that they don't want to be submissive, that comes across as a weakness.
Right. The thing is, when you start that relationship with that boss, on Monday you're going to have this, what I would call an expectations meeting, and then if they say, I would like to have regular meetings with you, they may not say that, and you have to drive the process. And so I would suggest on Friday, say, okay, here are some of the things that, the boss can say, here are some of the things that I'd like you to get done this week, and then you say, well, let's meet on Friday to see how I'm doing and chart my progress. If for the first month you have goal setting on Monday and then review on Friday, or just goal setting on Monday and review on Monday, so you go a whole week, then the other thing is you are making sure you're on target. The other thing is you're also not bothering your boss every 5 minutes with a question. You're holding on to those questions for a week. Then after a while, maybe those supervision meetings are going to be every 2 weeks, or maybe they're going to be every month, or they're going to be quarterly, or they're going to be, but you want to have that constant communication, and that's where a lot of problems exist, is when we're not talking and listening to each other.
Now, I would say in a perfect organization, you went to work for the perfect organization.
Which would be careers in transition.
Exactly. So
where I love my boss.
They know, the supervisors know that, okay, we have a new employee, we have this first week all laid out. We have an employee package, so they know the
training program,
all kinds of things. They have a training program. They know what they want you to do in the first week, and they lay it out for you.
Right.
But the other possibility, and which probably happens more than we would want to think, is that they don't have a very well-planned first week orientation for the employee. So things happen like what you said.
Right.
You don't want to be bothering them for 5 minutes, but nobody's telling you what to do.
Right.
And you don't want to make a mistake.
I think what I've learned, and I hope other people learned from the Great Recession, is there are no guarantees, and you are in charge of your career. That means you have to manage your boss, you have to manage the process if the boss doesn't. So you're talking about two extremes. On the one hand, you have this very structured training program, which could be a week, a 2 week, could be a month, could be 3 months, could be a year-long training program, depending upon the organization.
You go to IBM, I would assume.
Oh, sure. General Electric, exactly. So, or you could have the boss that says, come on in, let me show you where your office is, here's your computer, here's your phone, and I'm going to let you go, and you take care of what you need to do. So you're going from total structure over here to complete ambiguity, and you don't know what the goals are. So it's your responsibility to ask the right questions. Again, because you could be going down this way and the boss is thinking this way.
Now, I said a week before. Is there a monthly? Can you think of anything that you ought to feel that you ought to have done in the month? Because I think you said the first month is the most critical. Of course, the first day and the first week, but then any kind of goals for a first month? Should you be feeling like you're really kind of functional at some point? I mean, within a month or a week?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I took this position at Skidmore, within 4 days, it was like I had been there for 5 years. And that's just because I've spent 20 years in career centers. Again, it all depends. Let's say you're moving from the capital region to California, or let's say you're moving from the capital region to take a new job in a foreign country where you don't speak the language.
That's a good example.
You are not only worried about your first 30 days on the job, you're worried about you have a new language to learn. You are also worried about your wife and 2 kids and how they're adjusting. You're worried about your new house that you just bought that needs work.
You don't know if a handshake means I hate you or I like you.
Yeah, or you're shaking with the wrong hand.
Right.
So there's so many other things to consider. If you're just taking another job across town in the same type of an organization, the transition obviously is going to be much smoother. For me,
More in terms of interpersonal relations.
Yeah. For me, it's always about expectations. You can even ask ahead of time, before you even start, what are the goals during that first week? What would you like to see me do? How will I know if I've been successful in this job?
Wonderful question.
Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't know. Sometimes
makes them think.
That's exactly right. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that sometimes they didn't even know to think that way. So you're organizing their thoughts for them. They might need some time in order to think about the answer that they want. And then they say this answer, and you rephrase it, and you say, so what I hear you saying is that these are the top 5 things that I should be doing in the first week or the first month. And then they may say, yeah, you're right, but I would also like you to do these things. So you have to keep rephrasing things until they get clear. Then what you might want to do with your boss is send an email and say, it was great meeting with you today. I'm really excited to be here. My understanding is these things. So you have some kind of documentation of it, and then it's more formal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think all that can be done without feeling that you're ingratiating or...
Right. You have to know how your performance and success is going to be evaluated. What are the top 10 criteria for you, and make sure you hit that criteria and clearly and write it down. I'm just more of an observer of the office, how things are done, and then after X amount of weeks or months, that's when you have more credibility and you've built up trust, and that's when you can start to make some of the more significant changes that you'd like to do.
Now, this sounds like a real landmine, office gossip.
I stay completely out of it.
Did you hear about Susie and what they did over the weekend?
If that happens, either I will listen and not comment on it, or I will listen briefly and say I have another commitment, or just to let you know, I have so much work to catch up on, and I'm swamped with emails. Could you just excuse me for a minute? I've got to attend to this.
So you haven't insulted them at all by telling them that they're gossiping and there's something wrong with them. It's totally, you try to make it seem like you're not leaving the conversation except that you're busy.
Well, the thing is, you don't want to leave abruptly. At the same time, you can listen to people. Oftentimes with gossip, people just want to vent or make themselves feel better. You can listen intently without engaging in the kind of gossip.
Right, because everybody's going to know everything about you once you say something. I mean,
right.
if you give them information that might be interpreted in a negative way by somebody else in the organization, they're probably going to hear about it.
Whoever you gossip with will gossip about you.
And that's kind of the same thing that maybe we think about when we write an email. If I didn't want this on the front page of the New York Times, maybe I shouldn't say it this way.
For me, gossip is a waste of time and energy. That's not how I want to spend my time. It's not how I want to spend my life. My goal in my private practice careers and transition is to impact other people. When I'm at Skidmore, it's to impact students. I really don't have a lot of time for that.
Now, different people have different personalities. Some people are nervous on the first day on the job. I mean, it's normal. There's a lot going on. It's your career. You'd like to get paid more than 1 week and be told, well, this isn't working out. So how do you deal with nervousness without letting it...
Well, one, what I do is I always smile. If I smile, people will think I'm confident, whether I'm not confident or not.
Whether you're trembling.
Right. So if I smile, especially during this interview, Richard Naylor.
It makes it easier for me to smile.
Yeah, you're going to smile, you're going to laugh, you're going to be put at ease. So I'm getting back what I need. And what I need is validation that everything's going to be okay. So I'm going to smile at you, I'm going to feel good about myself, you're going to release endorphins, and that's going to break the ice and the mood. Of course you're going to be nervous. Again, you follow people's leads. You observe and you're extremely polite and respectful, and you want to build up that trust. And the nice thing about most new jobs is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to violate the unwritten rules of the office, and you just say, you know, I'm very sorry, I'm new here, I'm trying to learn so much right now, and I wasn't aware of that. I mean, it could even be like where you put your lunch in the office refrigerator.
Right.
You know, if somebody always has the top shelf reserved, but you came in 15 minutes to work early and you put your stuff on there, somebody might be like, I've been putting my lunch in there for the last 15 years on the top shelf, and you're the junior, so you go down into the bottom part.
So in other words,
okay, I'm sorry about that. That wasn't in the employee manual.
No, it wouldn't be. This is a little trivial, but not to the person.
Right. Oh, right.
Okay. So any other tips you would give that we haven't talked about?
Your attitude is everything. Okay, positive attitude every day.
Should people make notes? I was just you know, as you go along, should you have a pad, or is that?
Oh,
kind of
absolutely. I mean, my first day at Skidmore, I was absolutely writing down notes. 90%,
names. Oh, what about names?
Yeah, 90% of what you hear is lost within 30 days. If I asked you, who did you talk to, and what did they say on March 1st, you probably couldn't tell me. So absolutely want to take some notes. You want to find mentors and allies who are going to help you achieve your goals. You're coming to this organization with a network. You want to network within this organization and externally, and certainly build up one of my favorite things, which is your LinkedIn account.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's called LinkedIn or whatever it's called.
Or your business cards, you want to continue to develop your Rolodex. A new job is great. It's a new experience. Even if the job does not work out for you, it's still a learning experience, and it's still something that you can look back on and say, I learned this about myself. I learned that I do not want that in the future, and I'm more focused in this direction now.
We're almost out of time. I just want to deal with names, though, because it seems like I don't remember names well. So if I don't write them down.
First of all, don't say that you don't know names well. Because now psychologically and subconsciously you're saying, I don't do this very well, I don't do this very well, I don't do this very well. So it's hard to overcome that. So what you say is, one of the things that I've set as a goal for 2011 is to get to know people's names better. So if you introduce yourself to me, I shake your hand, and then I repeat your name. And then while you're talking, I say, Richard, 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 in the back of my head.
Right. While still listening.
While still listening, I'll say it like 7 times. I gave a keynote address up in Malta recently, and the guy that helped me with the technology, his name's Mark. This was like several weeks ago. I still remember his name. I haven't seen him. I may never see him again. But when he was setting up the technology, I was like, Mark, 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 Mark. Because if there was a problem, I was going to have to find this guy, and I don't want to be like, what's the guy that helped?
Right. The guy with the blonde hair, medium build.
People want to be remembered by their name and by their birthday. I mean, I don't know when your birthday is, but it's one of those things like, you know who your friends are when they call you or send you a birthday card. So a name is very important. So you want to say it over and over again, whether it's verbally or in your head. So when you leave somebody, I would say, Mark, very nice to meet you. Thank you again, Mark. I really appreciate that.
We've got time for like one more question.
Go for it.
Mentors. How do you avoid stepping in problems, creating problems? What's a good way to try to get somebody to help you without being a pest?
See how you can help them. Most people want to help you, but the other thing is you have to ask. You have to ask for help. Mentors can be the type of person that you meet and you say, you know, in our very brief conversation, you would be a great mentor for me, or they can develop over time. I know my first boss at Siena College, Tim Lederman, fantastic mentor, continues to be a role model for me. We can't get to our goals without a dream team, and that includes mentors with either in the organization or outside the organization. And then you also have to have that givers get principle of giving back to them or mentoring somebody else.
That's nice. Thank you.
Oh, it was great. Great show.
That went awfully fast.
It did. And I hope our viewers learned a lot about their first 30 days on the job.
Thank you. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week, and take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.